Hello again. We receive so many nice notes and calls and what do you call them, emails, and requests to hear more about our garden and our silly residents. So Santa and I talked about it, and normally we just come into your lives once a year, but this pandemic has everybody's lives all a-kilter. So we decided that we'd share some of the stories of our silly residents. So that's what we're gonna do. Santa wanted me to wear the dress again, but no. He's not in his outfit. He's in sweats, so I'm not either. Anyway, today I'm gonna tell you two short stories, mostly themed around Valentine's Day. So, the get up, right? All right, the first one is called The Search. Let's have the story. Lixie, a gnome, was having a morning. The charge from the solar cell had drained overnight, so breakfast was cold cereal, which irked Handy, even though he never said so. She could just tell. For a dwarf, he didn't have much of a temper, but he was fussy about his meals. Still, she had a whole house to run, on solar, thank you very much, Whopper, and triplets to take care of. Gnomes were given to multiple births, but thankfully dwarves were not, so just 3 babes. The kids' shower was not hot, so rather rushed, and Rumi was everywhere at once and into everything. She slipped out of the bathroom while still soapy wet and had to be chased all over the house. She was adorable, of course, but a handful. Ever since she had started walking, crawling, climbing, Lixie's life was not her own. The boys were happy to be put down with toys near Dad's workbench, but not Rumi. Lixie made a diving tackle and caught her ankle under the kitchen table as she attempted to get out the door. "Nice save, honey," commented Handy as he snipped an elaborate bow cresting a velvet top hat. Rumi howled as if something was chewing off her leg. She was also a drama queen. Neither of the boys even looked up from their toys. Putting Rumi down, "Can you watch the kids today, Handy? I need to see Bixie and decide which of us is going to stop in daily to take care of Uncle Mortal's farm while he's away." You would think it was obvious that it should be Bixie because all she has to take care of is that silly curl, but don't let her hear you say that. Lixie was walking out the door as she rattled on. Handy was buried in a huge bolt of pink satin and muttered his reply. "No, honey, remember I have this huge order of hats to get ready for the Valentine's Day parade, so I can't watch them at all. Sorry, I know you will figure something out." Rumi sat looking at her brothers, Oomph and Loff, as they basically took up space. She couldn't figure out how they could be related. She wasn't about to miss this opportunity. Sighing, she took each of them by the hand and led them out the opposite door from the one her mother had just used. She stood on the porch and looked up and down the redwood, sizing up the day. Mostly it was still quiet, but she could hear Wheezy as he worked his way down the branches. That decided her course of action. Heading in the direction to avoid Wheezy, she led the boys up the tree to his house, where she deposited them in the empty cabin. Kind of like rocks beside a stream. She gave each of them an object to play with and told them to stay. Now the day was hers. First order of business was to investigate the dragons. Amazing, but irritable when tickled or woken, and as it turns out, flammable. Best to move on. Great smells coming from Tandy's hobbit hole, but wow, is she loud when you accidentally tread mud on her clean floor and tip over the creamer onto the platter of cookies. She headed for the fairies' pool, thinking that maybe she could learn to swim. It's pretty deep, maybe another time. "Oh, I didn't mean to step on that. I'll get you another one of those. My dad can probably fix that. Sorry. You all seem to be pretty busy. I think this place might be a little small for me. Fairy stuff seems really delicate." She hopped down and beat a hasty retreat before the outrage behind her could get out of hand. Rumi knew better than to go anywhere near Gnomebuck's, where she was sure to bump into her mother, or even worse, her Aunt Bixie. So she headed off to see who else might be around. Meanwhile, Lixie was having a full and productive day. She and Bixie had actually agreed on a schedule for minding the creatures on the farm, and then had proceeded to solve all the relationship issues in everyone's lives but their own. Come twilight, she took the lit rope bridge back to the house and was relieved to find Handy napping in his chair. "How was your day?" she asked, half expecting to get a litany of complaints. "Productive but exhausting. Oh, and Wheezy popped down to say that he didn't mind keeping the kids overnight if we wanted to have some downtime. That was a nice surprise, I must say. He must know how pushed I am getting ready for the parade." "Oh, he's my new favorite dwarf," exclaimed Lixie as she plopped into a chair. 10 feet below, and quite unknown to them, Rumi had spent a fascinating day. She had determined that Grogu didn't say much. Groot said just one thing lots of ways. They gave out free samples at Scoops. They did not at Butch's Tap. The ladies at Mirror Mirror smiled even when they were rather cross. One does not drop in on any of the elves unannounced. By now she was getting kind of tired. She'd shared a weird stew with Turf, the troll, and her full tummy was making her sleepy, so she looked for a place to rest. She found a mossy mound under one of Gerald's great long legs and snuggled down. Long shadows stretched across the Enchanted Garden, and twinkling lights were turning on in every direction. The sun was just rising when Wheezy stood huffing at the porch door. He had a little Norf under each arm. "Here are the boys," he called out. "I fed them both breakfast and now I'm off to work." "Oh, thanks so much, Wheezy. You are a dear sort," called Lixie from the kitchen. "Hey, wait. Handy, boys, both. Did he say boys? What did he do with Rumi? Do you have her in the workshop?" Handy had been hard at work since before dawn, but peered over the mounds of lace to check the room. "No one here but me, honey." "Then where's Rumi? Wheezy, wait up." Lixie shot down the branches, catching Wheezy in no time. Not really that tough. "Where's Rumi?" "Isn't she with you? I never had her," he explained. "You just dropped off the boys, so I figured you'd left her with Bouncy or someone." A quick check showed that Rumi was not in any of the other dwarfs' homes in the Redwood. Minutes later, with tears coursing down her face, Lixie had to explain to the mayor, Tandy Bucklebaum, how Rumi could have been missing for a whole day before anyone knew she was gone. Tandy turned and hollered across for Fergus to get over there pronto. Meanwhile, Handy and Lixie were midway through the married couple's recrimination two-step, but Tandy had no patience. "Do that bull sugar on your own time. We have to find that little whatever in broad daylight with humans about, and do it before the Valentine's parade," she rapped out briskly. "Any notion of how we're going to do that?" "Do you think she would have left the garden?" asked Fergus. "After that ogre business, I mean. She saw that guy, right? Now that's a story we haven't told you yet, but we'll do that. We'll get to that another time." "Yes, she did," Fergus replied Handy. "I don't think she would leave on her own." "Well, let's start with that assumption then. I'll ask the dragons to fly kind of high and search the treetops." Tandy went to ask Rootbeer to have the fairies fly discreetly around looking for the North. The rest of the garden residents were to start a ground search at one end and work their way toward the other end. Meanwhile, Rumi had slept really well and awoke ready for another exciting day. When she peeked out from under the topiary's giant legs, she saw a line of elves and gnomes and trolls and dwarves walking along. So she popped out and joined them. "Morning," she chirped to the tall elf next to her. "Just so," Lorien replied, barely glancing down. "What you doing?" continued Rumi as she skipped along a little. "Looking, not chattering," intoned the elf. Rumi was quiet for a few beats, but her nature won out. "Looking at what?" "Some lost little creature. Now hush and look," instructed the elf. "But how do I know what I'm looking for?" Rumi asked reasonably. "I don't know. It's part dwarf and part gnome. A dome or some such thing. It's small and female. That's all I know," said the exasperated elf. "I bet you mean a Norf," corrected Rumi, giggling. "I'm a Norf too, so I can't wait to meet her." The elf halted abruptly and turned to her. "Tell me your name at once," he commanded. Rumi was finally cowed by his manner and ducked her head, and she said, "Rumi?" "You will follow me," was all he said, and he left the line and headed for Tandy's hobbit hole. Lorien, the elf, presented a subdued Rumi to the mayor, who immediately called off the search and took the child to her parents waiting at their house in Whopper Jr. Rumi endured endless lectures about the possible calamities that could have befallen her and the garden. A new boundary was set such that she was never to leave Whopper's branches again without a parent. Oomph might have grinned, but it's kind of hard to tell. Lixie and Handy found a quiet moment to make up before donning their finery for the parade. Residents of the garden heaved a collective sigh of relief and readied for the parade with lighter hearts. When one of us is in trouble, we're all in trouble. That's just how it works in the Enchanted Garden. The end. Ho ho ho! Yeah, all right. This next one is a little love story called Like a Stone. Truff, a young troll, was smitten from the moment he first saw Layli, the fairy lifeguard at the community pool. She was giving swimming lessons to a group of beginners, and she was a vision of glistening sweetness in the morning sun. Back with his mates, Dunley, the young elf who had just moved into the Emerald Castle, Groot, and Half-Pint, the gnome, he bemoaned his plight. She's too perfect to ever want anything to do with a troll. They suggested swimming lessons. He was hesitant, but they insisted that it was a good idea to play to her strengths. So the next day, Truff headed to the pool with new trunks and signed up for beginner's lessons. He filed in with a group of little fairies, gnomes, and hobbits, all waiting to get in the pool. Truff was twice the size of the hobbit next to him. "Hi all and welcome," greeted Layli. "I'd like everyone who can already float to move over by the snack bar, and the rest of you stay here with me." Everyone but Truff and a little hobbit walked over to the snack bar and sat at the tables. Now, being able to float is the first thing to learn about swimming, and it's mostly just the ability to relax in the water, explained Layli. So you spread your body out over the surface and you just let your muscles go limp, while taking in as much air as is comfortable. Shall we try it? Several of the kids snickered and suggested that there might just be more to it than that, at least for Truff. The two novices sat on the side of the pool and gently lowered themselves into the warm water. Now take a slow, deep breath and spread your arms out wide, urged Layli. I'm right here and I'll be with you, so don't worry, just relax. The two pushed off from the edge and opened their arms wide. Truff had just one good look at the umbrella that shaded the pool before plunging under the water. Down, down, down he went. He thrashed his arms and his legs wildly, but that just made it worse. He was dropping, well, like a stone. He could just see the outline of his little hobbit buddy as he was floating on the surface. Laylee was diving towards him, swimming for all she was worth, but he was like a rocket. He thumped unceremoniously in a pile near the drain, arms and legs clanking down every which way. He found that there was no distress because he didn't need the oxygen that other beings did, so he was not uncomfortable, just wet and mortified. Laylee reached him and began trying to pull him off the bottom. He helped by pushing up, but his weight was just too much for them, and each time they got a few feet up, they would sink back to the bottom. Laylee was running out of air and gave it one last desperate pull. She didn't see her necklace catch on Truff's shoulder and the clasp break. The necklace dropped to the drain without either of them noticing, and Laylee motioned that she had to go back up, but that she would come back with help. On her next dive, she brought the 3 biggest guys she could find, but the results were the same. Truff was just too heavy. Up top, strategy was being discussed. "I am Groot," Groot said. "A construction crane seems drastic, Groot, but thanks for the idea," said Fergus. Elves and gnomes and dwarves weighed in on the problem. 11 fruitless ideas later, the crane was looking much better. "So do you know where we can get one quickly?" asked Fergus. "I am Groot," nodded Groot. "Well, let's get it done then," agreed Fergus, and everyone set about making way for the crane. It worked better than imaginable, and soon a dripping but grateful Truff was sitting poolside, wrapped in several towels. Laylee was fluttering around him, apologizing. "I should have known that beings made of stone aren't designed to swim, but it's just never come up before," she moaned. "It's not your fault," comforted Truff, "and I'm fine, really. But it's my job," insisted Laylee as she patted herself, and then began to search around her throat. "Oh no, where's my umlaut? I know I had it this morning." "Is that the sparkly that you wear around your neck?" Truff asked. "Yes, and it helps me with casting charms. It was a mother present, so very special. I just can't lose it." A thorough search established that it was not on the pool deck, and no one had found it, so that left just one place. Laylee dove in and was on the bottom for a long time while the others waited up top. She finally surfaced and drew a huge breath. "I found it, but it's stuck in the drain and I can't work it loose," she called. Several fairies dove in to help, but it was no use. It was stuck fast. Truff shrugged out of the towels and stepped up to the pool's edge. "I'll get it loose, Laylee," he said. "After all, you lost it trying to help me, so it's the least I can do." "But Truff, you can't swim," Laylee stated the obvious. "Well, I guess it's a good thing there are cranes then," joked Truff, smiling as he disappeared under the water with a huge splash. The crane worked the second time just as well, and a grateful Laylee allowed as how Truff could wait until after class and walk her home if he wanted, and maybe even take her to the Valentine's Day parade. The next day, Grogu pointed down at a twosome getting ready to tee off and told Groot to check out the couple who had been the talk of the parade. Truff had a grin that almost split that rock-hard jaw of his, and Laylee was radiant, her umlaut twinkling around her neck. You all have a very happy Valentine's Day, and we'll see you again in the Enchanted Garden. Thank you.